head, how do we get the very, very best out of ourselves? And this is something which I've grappled with my whole life. I think most of us have. And I have a particular solution, which some of you saw a year ago from this, which is my journal, which I introduced pretty much just after my birthday and after really the channel started. So you can kind of go and have a look at the link down below, which will take you to the first time I shared my journal. And this is really my way. You can see in here I have, this is my journal. So everything I do is all kind of like in little notes like this. And this is my way of decoding my brain. If you think back to the times of the code breakers in World War II, I love watching those movies and seeing those kind of scenes of, first of all, the guys who are just capturing the code, like, because it's all coming in and they can't make any sense of it, but they're capturing it all. Then they have a second thing they do, which is they then pause and actually start looking for the patterns within it as well. Well, that's pretty much what I do for my journal. Whenever I'm thinking, I think with my pen without necessarily making any judgment on what I'm thinking or why I'm thinking those things. Then I'll go back afterwards and decode. And it's a little bit like, instead of thinking of your brain as like a library where you're just storing information, or a computer where you're programming things, where you assume it's all on the computer, think of it almost like a radio station or Wi-Fi, the internet. You know, if you go looking in the computer for the internet, it's not there. But once you tune in, you've got access to all the world's information. So I remember in my 20s, I used to think like that. Like, well, what if our brains, until they can like actually show us scientifically where the memory's stored, I'm happy to go with this thought as well. What if our brains, instead of it being where all those memories and all of those thoughts are in the brain, what if they're out there somewhere on some radio station, like Radio Roger? And if I'm tuning into my one, then as a result of tuning into it, I'm going to get a stream of consciousness that I wouldn't get if I'm not tuned into it. In fact, that's how I do all my mentoring, is I start by trying to tune into whoever I'm working with, because it's not about what I think, it's about what would I do in that situation? What could I give them, which would be guidance that they could easily run with in a way that if I share with them something I might do, it might not be right for them in the first place, right? So much of this is what shows up in my journal. So I thought, given that we have a very special week, if you're actually watching this in the week I published this video, I'm about to go to London. We have our London Fast Forward event, and we have the launch of our Dynamics 3.0, and everything I do within my life is like a manifestation, first of all, of thoughts. We all do, right? It's like everything that we create is a manifestation at some point of thoughts. Some people like to decode their dreams. I like to decode my thoughts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you, since I last shared this a year ago, what's happened in the last year and how my thinking has changed, so you can kind of get a bit of an insight as to how I do it. And then take whatever works for you, and who knows, you might be doing the same thing in your journal already, you might have different ways that you do it, but just take that metaphor that there's this radio station, which is your personal radio station, and the more clearly you're tuned into it, the more you can get new things coming your way which you wouldn't even thought of before. And I'm actually going to show you not just some of the pages in here, I'm going to show you what we've done in our business and what I've done in my life as a result of the pages. So first of all, this here was what I shared. I actually shared this page. Here's my page. I actually shared this page a year ago because this was going from 45 to 46 years old. These were my intentions. So tent is like, you know, there's a tent. I do a lot of metaphors and puns in here. Open sesame, this way up. And this was basically all the kind of like things that I saw in my life, not just 45 years and 46, but also in terms of time before and after my birthday. We had 90 years, 90 days. And that was when I launched my book. And that was all part of what I shared in my last video, was the intention of making the bestseller and how that happened. I was charting my luck, so I actually was watching what was happening with my luck, and that gave me new insights to basically where I should be focusing my time. This was one of the biggest things that I found, right? I love this one. Oh, this one here, entrepreneur equations. I went through a bit of a phase where I'm thinking, how do I get more sense of my thinking? So these are equations on different thoughts. So for example, E equals V times R multiplied by R over D. Engagement equals value times relevance squared by immediate reward for interaction divided by competing distractions. We actually use that as a formula within Genius U. It's like, how can we make sure that we're building engagement, increasing value, increasing relevance squared, which means that we take a test to find out exactly what's most relevant for you, and then at the same time divided by competitive distractions. So how can we actually keep it really focused so that you're actually able to get more engaged, right? So those are equations. This one here I love, right? This changed a lot over the last year, the way that we thought as a team within our company. There's an onion, and it says here, too many fingers in the onion, but it also has pie within onion, which means opinion. And this was in one of the sessions mentoring I was doing, where I was thinking, everyone's got a different opinion. I don't want to have an argument about my opinion over someone else's opinion. Let's just test and measure and find out what actually works, right? So, so this was like irrationalizing the onion, right? So onions are meant to be peeled. Don't make onion pie. So the pie was the pi, and basically pi, which is obviously an irrational number, once it's in the onion, then it becomes an opinion. When it's an opinion, everything becomes irrational. So take the pie out, you end up with an onion. Just peel back the layers, get to the truth, right? We actually do that now, which is like opinions count for nothing. Let's never argue about opinions. Let's test and measure. You think you've got a better way, give it a test, come back to the data, share it with us. And that is one of the biggest breakthroughs in how we as a team work compared to before, where we spend a lot of time basically listening to everyone's opinions, right? So the power to eliminate the irrational. So you can kind of see like a little picture, but it actually goes about changing our whole way of thinking. But when I was drawing the picture, I didn't know what I was going to draw. I just started writing. I saw the pie, I got the onion, and that's where it ended up. Raving fans, another really big thing that's changed my thinking in the last year. This was a program we went to. This was the Mavericks, which I went to in Washington a year ago. This was amazing, just a thought process where we had someone talk about raving fans. You can see there's a fan there that's blowing. So you want to have wind in your sails, start with the fans. And then this goes, as it says here, I wrote this down, the speaker didn't say it, but I wrote it down because it's what came out for me. Silence is the language spoken by those who hear everything. It's really interesting. If you really want to listen, first thing to do is stop talking, right? So this was like, wow, we've been so busy on content and getting content out there. Let's pause and ask, let's listen. And as a result, we really got much more connected with fans. As you know, like in the comments, I replied to comments on this YouTube channel, and we have lots of different questionnaires and ways of asking people who come along for our events, you know, what it is that they're actually looking for in life. Actually, put comments down below because we've got a Q&A coming up. So any questions you've got, I'm listening. And this also is a part around not just not talking, is about not doing. Working is not a discipline, not working is a discipline, right? Like working comes naturally. We all just kind of like get busy doing things, working the brain, working every day. But as opposed to actually saying, what if I had to stop work? I had to actually just give myself time out. That takes discipline. You know, it's like breathing properly when you're running, it takes discipline. So this is all about basically the opposite of what we normally think, right? Okay. Here was another example, right? This was basically, again, last year as I was going through my own thinking. And in here, you can see, this is Dan Sullivan. If you haven't ever followed Dan, he runs something called Strategic Coach. Dan gave a talk at the 25K group that I went to. And I love this quote here: universe wants you to be energetic, or it wants the parts back. So if you're the kind of person who's like, I'm not using my full energy, I'm not vibrating at the level I should be, the universe wants the parts back. And this here is what I've just been talking about. All of life is based on radio frequencies, right? If we actually start realizing our greatness is a frequency, and rather than us having to work hard to get to it, we can just tune in, ask better questions, get more focus. Whenever I'm stuck, I'll just say, okay, my tuning dial is off, right? You know, an HD TV gets the same signal as a black and white TV. It comes from the same station, but the reception is totally different, not because of the signal, because of the receiver, right? Because of the TV. So I see myself like that. I've got to keep on tuning in more. And we do that as a team. A team allows you to actually have a bigger aerial. This was a large part of some of the events I went to. This was Joe Polish's 25K, where I got a lot of learning. When I'm drawing, I don't actually, when I'm drawing, know exactly what's going to come up. And different things show up, like Plan B. This was Peter Diamandis talking about bold. And I thought, well, there's old and bold, so you've got a choice in life. You're just going to go old, or you're going to be bold, right? And by just thinking like that the B in Plan B is bold, that allows you to think differently about your life. There's always a plan B. There's always a way for you to actually become more successful or to grow faster. That showed up as I was listening, right? But that is my biggest takeaway from his talk, even though he didn't actually say that. So sometimes the biggest learnings are not the words, they're the gaps between the words. You know, it's like music is made from the gaps between the notes. So when you start thinking in that way, which is what could you be missing in your own life? What are the gaps you might be missing just because you're just listening to the thoughts and then they go by and then you forget them? My biggest learnings come as a result of what I write and then look back on later. Just like I mentioned, you decode. This is all about double binary, which is actually looking at things in a different point of view. This is my first thought about alt delete, like what do I need to delete in life to be able to actually get more focused. The product side, I actually did a talk on this at some point. One of my videos, our entire product range came out of me having this page, thinking it through after talking to the team, us working out together what we wanted. creating a little avatars for our 3 different customers, and thinking really about how do we serve entrepreneurs the most effective way. And this is something really powerful. This came from a book. Vern Harnish has written a book called Scaling Up, where he talks about what are your top 10 processes within your business. And we have Genius U, which, as you know, we just launched the update on. So, so on here, you can look, here's the graphic, right? There's a graphic where you can see it starts over here, right? So it's like, what are my top 10 processes? Well, you got like new mentor process. I've got new mentors who, this is all going to be launched, hasn't been launched yet. They come on board. How does the mentor put on their mission on Genius U? We've got a new mission process. Well, we'll show them how to do it. That all gets automated. Comes through this little funnel down here. Genius Growth Pathways is actually our number 4, because our number 3 over here is new genius process. We call our students geniuses, right? So the geniuses show up. They they pop into here. The mentors then add all this amazing growth in their personal paths. And then from there, we have down below partners. So the little bus there, get on the bus, partner process of how do we support our partners. We just launched that. We just had, like, what, 800 partners join us for our Dynamics 3.0 launch. They followed this process that we put in place. Payment process, like how do you go about getting things for free or paying for things. So then you got all the little geniuses. You wouldn't think that this is like the basis of a multi-million-dollar business, right? But this is, for me, how I think, and it's allowing me to play, right? It's allowing me to have fun and to think, what could I be missing? Because processes generally, a lot of people think that sounds boring, that's like spreadsheets. Doesn't have to be. So then from there, this is our 1 million geniuses that we're looking at from by the end of this year, by 2015, which we're on track for. Development process, which is basically how do we develop all the software? That's all happening here. Our Genius Ninja team process, which has to happen in order for us to actually have, we call our team members Genius Ninjas, and we have a group, and there's a whole inside joke around our whole team where everyone comes on board and gets a Genius Ninja initiation, which then allows them to actually be of real value to the team and vice versa. So when we talk about igniting your genius, it's not just igniting the genius in our customers and our clients and our entrepreneurs, it's about igniting genius in everyone in our team as well. And then from there, boom, igniting your genius, and our final one, platform growth process, how all of these grow with different elements. So it all can just automate and grow. And there's our little genius there, up and bright. Those are our top 10 processes. And as you can see, I have fun with it. But the key behind all of this is that I wasn't even clear on what those 10 were before I started drawing. But through the drawing, it made me think, you know, that process is part of that process. And going through that has really allowed us to be able to get much smarter about our new systems that we're creating online, which all are based on that. This is a changing gear, right? I'm not going to go through a lot more than maybe another 5 or 6 minutes of this, but I really would love you to just see how I think from the point of view of where I go with my thoughts in a way that some of it might inform where you're thinking. And to be honest, I'm doing this a little bit for selfish reasons as well, because, you know, this YouTube channel is for me a bit of a video diary. And I'm going to be, in my future self, looking back 10 years from now and looking at what I was doing and thinking about 10 years ago. So hello, future Roger. This is for you as well. This here is from a book which I was reading, which is all about science, and it's called The Island of Knowledge, and about how as science grows, so does ignorance. You know, as they say, amount of knowledge, the more he knows, the more he thinks he knows. Amount of wisdom, the more he knows, the more he knows how much he doesn't know. This one here says, as the island of knowledge grows, so do the shores of our ignorance. You know, as our knowledge grows, the actual surface around that is growing and growing. That's our ignorance, is what we don't know. So this is basically all about that thought process, which is what kind of a world are we moving towards? What is it we don't know? Or that new measurement tools allow us to actually ask new questions we couldn't have asked before. And this then actually, I only half finished this, and when I was recently in the rainforest, I finished the rest of it, and it just was synchronicity that happened, where I could then actually add in all that thought process about the wisdom of the rainforest, which was coming out from the Ashwa people. Here's some more examples of like how my thinking has really changed through people that have impacted me. This is Peter Thiel. He's written a book which is called From Zero to One. And you can see here, you know, here's a chess piece. He's a grandmaster chess player. Don't be the first mover, be the last mover. He says, you know, Google is successful not because it was the first to get into search, it's because it was the last. It was the one who dominated. Amazon's successful not because they had the first store, but they're now the ones that are dominating for the last. So how do you make sure you're set up to be the last mover advantage? 7 questions he asks. You can find them here or read them in his book. And then that led me to this lighthouse with a picture of our entire, lighthouse of knowledge. This was our culture code: global, entrepreneurial, natural, inspiring, unique, and smart, which spells GENIUS. And this is basically our culture, which was grown, and as a team has grown in all different countries, in UK, Singapore, Bali, in the US, and Australia, in India. And this basically shows it all united and connected. And this was before we really built our team over this last year. Our team has grown by about 500% this year. But it all started with a piece of paper where I was thinking through and really visualizing what I could see the team being like. Similarly, when we started doing our different success guides, you will see our success guides. We have Genius Guide to Success with Jack Canfield, Genius Guide to Health with JJ Virgin. This was the thought process for Jack's. Jack has a book which is called The Success Principles, an amazing book. And as you can see here, I put all of them on here, organized by the different energies. Can, field, there's a can, there's a field, there's sheep on top. And this basically allowed me to get inside Jack's mind as to how he thinks and organize it in a way that actually allows us to link with the different geniuses. So based on which one you do naturally well, if you're more of an extrovert, here's the success principles that work for you. More of an introvert, here's the ones that work for you. So this basically was me thinking that through. And I did most of this on aeroplanes as I flew around, rather than watching movies or reading magazines. I'll be doodling, I'll be doing that. That then led to a number of other things with TLC. This was all this year with Singularity University. I spent a huge amount of time this year learning, and it's worth it, because as I'm learning, I'm applying the things that are the most important, which all are in this book. It's not what I hear in a video, or it's about what I write down. Think it, ink it, do it, review it. Right. So this is again more than just a little place to jot thoughts. As you can see, most of this is visioning where things are going. It's about the future as opposed to the past. Couple more, Abundance 360. If you've ever kind of wondered, how do you rate across scalable businesses? This all comes from a book called Exponential Companies. This is all Salim Ismail who created all of this, so definitely go have a look at that book. And I was rating on each of these: staff and demand, community, algorithms, least assets, engagement. How do we track on each of them? And talking about moonshot thinking. This became something I shared within our Fast Forward events. And for those of you coming to see me in the next month, whether it's in London or Thailand or South Africa, there'll be elements of some of this which I'll be sharing in terms of how I use it. And again, it all goes through this filter of being decoded through our journal first. Same when it talks about the crowd as one AI, there's a big robot, that's the crowd. And this is all about the interlinking of human longevity and genotyping, which was all part of a talk which Craig Venter gave, Making 100 the New 60, and how that then links in terms of our own thinking as well. This all led to probably my biggest realization this year, which was I had a goal when I was younger, to be able to go out and impact 1 million people and make a difference in the world. And when I hit those goals, I never really reset those goals. I mean, I've continued to do that, but I thought, you know what? It's like when as it says here, the first billion is always the hardest. If I was to rethink from 1 million to 1 billion, what would change my thinking? So it's just 3 zeros, right? You add 3 nothings and you end up with an entirely different number. You change one letter, M to B, and this is basically from here, Larry Page's quote, are you working on something that will change the world? Are you impacting 1 billion people? So that's when I changed my reset. This happened earlier this year, and it's really changed a lot about the thinking and the way we're actually working, not just within Genius U, but within all of Entrepreneurs Institute now as well. And it all came down to what I need to cut, because it was because I was doing way too many different things to focus at one thing and really be able to grow that and scale it much more effectively. This was in Necker, so this one here was when I went to Necker Island earlier this year as well. And there was a great group of us there with Richard Branson, where we talked about some really powerful things around collaboration, entrepreneurship, education. So you can see it's all in here, little eggs, little tortoise eggs that basically hatch into new amazing ideas. This is the mantra of Virgin Unite: people, planet, and profit, but all 3 together to make that big difference. So that was basically all part and parcel of how I started thinking differently about aligning that whole idea of impacting more people, but doing it through entrepreneurship. Awesomeness Fest, this one, I post some of these online as well sometimes to the events that I'm at, because others ask for them as well, but this video kind of like does the job, showing all of it all in one place. So You can kind of like pause the screen if there's things in here you find interesting. If you were at Awesomeness Fest, that is Vishen Lakhani's event with Mind Valley. Great event, and this one was in Dubrovnik. And then he talked himself about consciousness engineering. He's just now got a book deal for that title, so look out for that when it comes out. And this was all about thinking. Reality is in the mind. There's everything we're talking about right now. There's a little brain. There's a little cogs going here as well. And this is all about kind of like thinking through, from education to evolution, how there are systems of thinking. And this one here, hurt people, complete people. If I really wanted to make a difference in the world, how do I go about making myself as complete as possible? And then this one is from Pachamama. More recently, this was when I went into the rainforest with the Pachamama Alliance. You can see I am was within all of that, which is the web of life. This is one of my favorite phrases from Lynn Twist, who wrote The Soul of Money and actually founded Pachamama with her husband, Bill, Blessed Unrest. So blessed unrest is this idea that on the one hand, there's always something to drive for. That's the unrest part. But secondly, you can be in humility and gratitude and love at every moment, every step of that, which is where the blessed part comes in. And that is a phrase that she was inspired by from Mother Teresa, who she met. And so that really kind of stuck with me as well. And this is just from this last week. You can see it's not even finished yet. This one here, Founders, Coaches, and Pause, is what we just ran here at Vision Villas to support entrepreneurs right here in Indonesia. And all of that was part of an earlier vision that you saw in the pages before that as well. So I could look back at anything that I've manifested in life and find a reference to it in my journals. And the most interesting thing is sometimes in my journals, I'm finding references to it like a year or two before. It's like, holy cow, I wrote that at that point. Didn't even know that, right? So I think that's one of the most amazing things, if you really come back to that same thought, which is that all of us within us have a genius and have a way that our brain works that we may not even be aware of if we're actually on the inside. You know, it's like the key to this is put it down, get it out there. So to answer that question, what's in my head, the answer is whatever is of value enough to pull outside of my head. And I ask that same for you. What mechanism could you be using to make sure that that genius inside of you also is able to get extracted out? So you bring it out so that you can look back at it and just see what it is that is going on that's allowing you, the clues already, that's allowing you to see the little breadcrumbs to the future of your future life as well. So to everyone watching, I hope that has been helpful and valuable. To Future Roger, I hope I've done a good job at sharing some of the highlights so far from this year in my journal. And please do post comments. This has been a very different video from the other ones because I've kind of gone a bit deeper into some of the things that I do. If you'd like that, you'd like to see more, let me know. Post a comment, put in a like, and do share this video as well with others if you think it'll be valuable for them. If you're coming along to London, look forward to seeing you then. We're going to have a live cast of our Dynamics 3.0 launch. It's going to be super exciting, and I think we've got about 1,000 people who are going to be coming along for that. So I'm looking forward to connecting up with everyone and seeing you all very soon. Until next week, we'll catch up again soon. Happy journaling, if that's what you're going to do. And I hope that I've inspired you with some of my thoughts about the fact that it's all out there. We just got to tune in.